Hi everyone, welcome to NoSleep. Today we have a very special guest. It's also our favorite artist, Alimo, in here, and we really want to interview his art process, and also we want to congratulate his exhibition just opening. We have our team, Matt, here. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit first, and then Alimo, the mic will be yours.
Yeah, thanks, Popple. And Alamo, thanks for joining us today. And thanks, everyone, for joining us as well. My name is Matthew. I'm the content lead here at Magic Forest NoSleep. I'm also on the customer support team at Stash, which is the NFT platform on Secret Network.
Yeah, Alamo, please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Alimo. I'm a fine artist, NFT artist. I do a lot of merchandise, kind of just general artist all around and creative. Been working for the past decade and kind of jumped into Web3 about a year and a half ago, which feels like a decade. But it's been really fun, kind of dropping all sorts of collections and really pushing my creativity. It's definitely sparked a whole new wave for me with Web3. So happy to be here and thank you so much.
Great. Yeah, I see your artist styles is very unique. I like to ask you, like, what's the most inspires your style?
Yeah, my style it's really influenced, when I was a kid, for sure, drawing with crayons on the walls and all those different fun imagination lands like most kids. And then it really evolved, I think, right when I started traveling. So I lived in Asia for a bit and I lived in South America for a bit. And all the color palettes out there are super bright, colorful. I mean, you can walk down the street and see, like, you just know where you are geographically, and it's just very inspiring for me. And so when I look back at all my work, I can see so many influences from these areas where it's animated and bright and loud and super fun. And so that fun, I think, kind of trickled and bled over into the work you see today.
Nice. So you mentioned that you went to Asia. I've been to Southeast Asia, thankfully. Where have you traveled throughout there?
Amazing. Asia is, I mean, I've been luckily all over. The first trip I did was right when I graduated college. I bought a one-way ticket and said, see you later to my family and kind of everybody. I didn't realize it at the time, but I really scared my mom because I'd left my phone and laptop at home altogether. And so I definitely did I'll call home every couple weeks and, hey, I'm in this city. But throughout Australia, I ended up in Indonesia surfing and then up in Southeast Asia. And I was in Thailand for a bit and I didn't want to go home. And my bank account showed $50, which was, probably pretty stressful for most people. But I ended up calling some friends that lived out in Vietnam and they were teaching English. And I bought a ticket out there for $49, had $1 in my name, and all of a sudden I was living in Vietnam for a little bit. It was pretty wild. And my whole entire design career started out there, which is pretty wild. And so ended up staying out there for a long time.
It's amazing. We can probably go down the rabbit hole. I have some really great stories that I have when I was in Thailand for a bit. And I'm sure my parents can totally relate with me as well. They didn't know where I was half the time, but every time I said I was in somewhere else, it was a really magical time for me. I want to talk a little bit about your short film. I had a chance to watch that the other day, and you spoke about how you're striving to live like you're a 5-year-old. And I was just curious, like, what are some of the benefits that you've gained from this mindset? And maybe like how others can tap into this mindset into their everyday lives.
Yeah, man, you look at a 5-year-old kid and everything is fine, right? Everything is fun. They pick up like an object and it's new, right? Their brain is developing and they're soaking life up like a sponge. And the older we get, the more things aren't as new, right? It's kind of like time goes by really quick because it's this Groundhog Day that we see from 9 to 5 kind of every single day. And so I try and live these moments like a 5-year-old kid, as in, making sure that, if you go to the studio on the exact same path every day, maybe you ride the bike on the other side of the street just to get a glance at that architecture, because a lot of time you're looking at the exact same piece, right? And I think a lot of main reasons why I travel so much is because you leave and then all of a sudden you're like, what is this? And then your brain is developing even more. And so that 5-year-old kid mentality it's just super important, because I don't know, you just want to stay young like a kid. They're having the most fun. They got no problems. It's stress-free. Granted, I still go through all those moments, and I still, drink my cup of coffee and smoothie in the morning, which is very repetitive, but I do try to kind of be very curious and look at all of things around the world and ask questions as often as I can.
Yeah, I think like a benefit of that is like building different neural networks. And I think like through that, it leads to, if you do the same thing, we're creatures of habit. It's really easy for us to plateau. So, taking that opposite side of the road, you are able to, build these maybe different networks in your brain, and you won't plateau as easy, and it'll probably increase your creativity in the long run.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So I also within that same video, you mentioned how important it is for you to take customer feedback into consideration, and it sounded like it fueled and it inspired you to create different pieces, or maybe a different project that you didn't think of yourself before. So I'm just curious, what has been the most surprising feedback that you've received that has led to a project, or a piece of art that you really love, that you haven't considered before?
Yeah, there's so many angles to it on asking feedback for people, and I think that comes back to like product design and kind of iteration. And you do these baby steps, and then you ask questions, and you see if people like certain things. And before Web3, I mean, most of those questions were with all my merchandise, right? And so it was these different t-shirt graphics, or maybe it was like a new product altogether. Like, great one is the puzzle. And so I never knew how to make a puzzle. I wanted to just make one because I love puzzles and they're just super rad. But during that process, I would send out different polls on my email and just ask people, hey, what do you want Alimo to produce next? Because a huge part of it is like inventory management. And if you're just making something just because, you might fail. And I've done that plenty of times. But kind of getting that buy-in with people on, like, you kind of know that they're going to pre-order before you even make it. And which is amazing with Web3 is that you are building this community and you are talking to them potentially more often. I kind of have to overlap with Web2 and Web3, and hopefully that will kind of sync up, pretty soon. But I am asking as many questions as possible. And at the same time, I'm also gonna make stuff that I want as well. It's not like I'm just making something that someone is like, I mean, I've got some weird requests, I'm like, yeah, it just doesn't fit like the ethos of who I am. And so, I appreciate all the feedback, good and bad.
Yeah. So I totally agree. Gathering feedback and asking the right questions is really important, but there's also what I think a lot of people struggle with is even getting to the point where they feel confident getting their word out, or maybe asking questions, or maybe like they have difficulty mustering up the confidence to ask for that feedback, because there's like a feeling of vulnerability that kind of probably everyone navigates through to one degree or the other.
Yeah.
But you need to get over that feeling of vulnerability to get your work out, right? So if someone has those feelings of vulnerability, how do you remedy that on your side, and maybe how do you could help folks navigate those fears of vulnerability as well?
Yeah, I mean, social media is a great like avenue for that. And there's, most artists were very, you know, comfortable inside, and maybe we were a little scared to share. And that is very vulnerable, right? Any creative outlet is, it's super hard. And I think in the beginning, when IG was a bit more common and people were starting to share things out, it got to the point where everything was so polished and you're just showing the best photo, the best destination. Here's the cream of the crop. And I kind of got to a point where I challenged myself of, hey, I'm going to post something every single day for the next 100 days. And
Mm,
it kind of put a pressure under myself of, nothing can be polished in that day. Like realistically, maybe the first 10 can be really prolific. And then it kind of got to the point of, hey, I just need to share out all the like what's going on in my process. And maybe people kind of buy in on that because they're seeing a lot of raw pieces. And so, I mean, advice, honestly, is to just hit that post button and
mm,
release it, because the time span that people actually look at anything, we're all memory is like a goldfish for 5 seconds. And so, even if you feel vulnerable, you should just put it out because only 10 people might see it. And even if those 10 people, they might give you feedback and be like, yo, that is amazing. Please do more of that, or please don't. And a lot of times when people say no, I kind of take that as a really cool like learning curve of like, okay, maybe that isn't the direction that people are resonating with. Maybe I should try this like drastically different idea, and oh, I'll try that. And then it will be something that I am not even excited on, which makes it more vulnerable for me. And then all of a sudden people are like, yo, that's awesome. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so there's a lot of funny scenarios that you can't just, you got to just put it out there and like forget about what people are thinking and just live your truth. If you're feeling good about it, just get it out there.
mm. That's pretty liberating when you structure it in that way. Just nothing is going to be perfect. Just get it out there and keep moving. And all feedback is a chance for you to learn, whether it's regardless of what the feedback is.
Interesting to see how you putting a lot of post-it. I think you are the most putting post-its person I know in the tutors, because you've been spending a lot of time. It's just about showing your drawing post-it. That's something I'm pushing, because there's a lot of artists they will more enjoy to using digital art with them they on the NFT journey, but you're doing the totally opposite. You're kind of doing whatever you want. You just want to be having fun, but at the same time you are showing the scene behind the drawing process, and I do appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do so many different mediums that it's, again, going back to I'm an artist and a creative, and why put yourself into that corner when you can live in so many different angles. So yeah, I want to share all of it out when I can. Maybe not the exact like thing, but I can't give away all of my secrets, but I can share some of them.
Just live your truth, as you said a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
So would also love to hear a bit about your first solo show. I know that it's starting tomorrow, the 8th of July, and
Yeah.
Solitude Safari exploring NYC's peaceful paradises, and presented by Legal Mezcal. So just curious, like what you're most excited about, what you're looking to accomplish there, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, I am ecstatic. I'm like at the point where I've emotionally depleted in a lot of ways. Even yesterday, I was like, what am I feeling right now? Because I just put so much time into building this thing out. I mean, it's a 2-year project that's been brewing in my mind conceptually for a really long time. And then it finally, I got the green light with the partnership in January. And I mean, hands down, one of the best partnerships I've had. The support and the encouragement from them and the ethos is just ridiculous. And so when you get that support, then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I got to prove myself and like make this thing even better than what I think it like already could be, because you all of a sudden go from an individual with a team, and that's like this crazy difference. But yeah, I got here in New York City in April, and I've just literally been in the studio for 8 to 10 hours a day painting and getting all these ideas out, and then really trying to curate these pieces that don't repeat themselves, but also tell a story of what New York City is. And the whole concept of the show is, you know, living in New York City with all the chaos and how people find that peace and tranquility in between. And, you know, when I was first pitching the company, I was like, I got all these notebooks of New York City that are filled with people basically walking on their phone in the middle of the city, just like chaos as we know it. Like everybody's on some journey and they're like ripping to work. They're working while they're walking. Life is hectic in New York City, and you feel that energy. And so all these books were filled with that. And I was like, how could I, like, what do I do with this? Because it just felt really fun to draw, but I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And I kind of pitched that to them. And the more that I looked and the more layers that I peeled back, it really didn't make sense to just draw this obvious. What happened is I kept looking at all these other books that I drew. And the last summer I lived in Greenpoint, and I spent a lot of time in these different parks and on the balconies and all these really interesting places, of course, the beach, and kept asking my question of like, you know, you hit a moment in New York City where all of a sudden you're like, I got to get out of here. Like concrete jungle's happening. I need to get to nature. How do I get to nature? And a lot of people, they'll jump on an airplane and they'll leave. If they can't do that, then they'll go the next furthest spot, which if they have a car, they can maybe get to the beach or the mountains. And as you keep like peeling that layer back and the closer the region you get, you kind of notice like, hey, not everybody can leave the city. And so maybe they're kicking it at the park. And, you know, maybe there's pulling out a barbecue in the front of their porch and the concrete, and they're stoked and they're super content. And so when I had those moments of all these people that are drawing, or that I was drawing with their phones, I also had these other kind of like nature peaceful drawings. And so that's kind of where the show came about, was like this extra concept. And I hope it resonates with people. It's been fun showing it out, and people are like, oh, I know exactly what you just did there. And it hits that feeling instantly. And that kind of, for me, separates good art from like really great art, is when it has that extra level of storytelling and concept.
I can tell you're really excited. And
yeah.
And I want to get the hoodie.
yeah. I'm really glad I asked you about this, because your level of excitement has been, you know, ripping through the screen. So I know you've been working really hard on this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to really resonate with the pieces that they see.
Yeah, I hope so. And there's also a bunch of tech underneath the hood. And that was another kind of pitch that I kind of sent to them, because, I mean, this is another rant if you guys are open for that. But over the years of me going to galleries, there's a lot of anxiety for me. Like I'll walk in there, if I don't see a group of people that I know, or like a certain clique, then I'll kind of walk in and I'll look at the art and I'll leave in 20 minutes because I'm like, I don't know if I fit here. And so the idea with working with Illegal Mescal was to really build an experience, and then also kind of add this co-creation where I'm bringing in all my Web3 and kind of outdoor people, and then they're bringing in their entire community all together. And that was kind of the brand play, and everything that we create in between is the kind of the equation of what we did together. And so this whole show is basically like, hey, let's all get together and look at really great art And instead of showcasing kind of display monitors that are kind of distracting in a lot of ways for me, I want to showcase my fine art that I think is the cream of the crop, and then I want to put a bunch of tech underneath the hood. So when people, if they buy it or when they investigate it a little bit more, they can go, oh, there's a proof of authenticity in it. There's an NFC chip. There's all these different layers in the blockchain. And when I show people the fine art and then you say, hey, there's this authenticity built into it, they go and they have this crazy aha moment. And they go, and then you go, hey, this is also an NFT. And they're like, that's what it is. And so the onboarding for the show is a way to have a frictionless kind of way of saying, here's fine art. And there's also technology, and let's remove that dirty word of what an NFT is, which I think is super dirty. People don't call MP3s music, they call them music. And so we shouldn't be calling it that word. We should just be calling it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what this show is all about.
Go ahead, Papa.
Yeah, also, I've been very seeing you to try to put a lot of utility for your collector, and also I see you actually spend a lot of time to kind of adding a value on the education as well. So yeah, that's something very amazing about your work journey on the Web3, and also I think that's something very exciting to see for everyone if they own your art piece or if they have a trend to getting to know you a little bit more, because I feel like you are really using the real word, like real artwork, to present your art at the same time, but you kind of adding the onboard journey to every collector. That's kind of like an extra benefit for everyone.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the idea. Tomorrow on Saturday we'll kind of find out what that dialogue is, because I launched this earlier a couple of days ago, but Web3 people know what it is in a lot of ways. They learned about what this multi-token images and these other code that I have been developing over the year in it. But the traditional folk, this is going to be really fun. I can't wait.
Yeah. It's their entry point into the world of Web3.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to personally wrap up my my list of questions with just letting folks know where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, great. All social media platforms is going to be Alimo Fun. So that's ALIMOFUN. That has been basically my entire social media journey, even though my artist name is Alimo. Someone took all of those names like 20 years ago, so I don't have that. So it's Alimo Fun. The website to see the full collection for the solo show is going to be paintings.alamofun.com. And then all of my e-commerce is alamofun.com. Cool. So yeah, lots of goods in there. Everything kind of bridges itself. So if you own an NFT, there's kind of token gating on the e-commerce, and there's a whole kind of I don't know, big grouping of things that work together, if that makes sense.
Nice. And before I send it over back to Popple, I just I know you have a lot of fun in your social media handles, but I had a really fun time meeting you today. So thank you for your time. So.
Yeah, great questions too. I enjoy kind of like being on my toes on what the questions are, and it's been good.
Thanks. Thank you. So I'll send it back over to Popple. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, before I wrap up, I do have one last question I want to ask you. You have been doing a lot of landscape, and you're also doing a lot of fine art, and I do want you to share a little bit more about if you having what opinion you want to share with your audience, for the normal artists, if they just new to Web3, how they could find their audience and how they can find the postfix collector.
Could you ask that again? There's a couple questions in there.
Oh, it's just like, yeah, I do want to ask because you are the landscape artist and also you're doing a lot of fine art as well. And I do want to ask you, as artist, if you can give some invite to someone just new into the Web3 journey, how could they can find the Pacific culture and how to engage with them?
Yeah, I mean, for Web3, if you're just learning, I would highly recommend not to mint anything and just to learn and kind of read as much as you can on what this technology is, and then start to kind of put yourself into the community and start to join different Twitter spaces and kind of interact very slowly. And then through those moments, you can start to find your people and kind of build out the community. And that's, I mean, that's how you, Popple and me met, was through the Ghost Club, right? And that's a really great example of, you know, I found a Twitter space that was really warm and welcoming, and then I reached out to them afterwards. You know, it was the first time I ever spoke in a space, and then over this past year and a half, it's almost 2 years now, we've all been kind of helping each other out. And so that would be my advice, is to, even if you don't know a group, it's really just getting on this, I guess, Twitter and a lot of other places and really just learning. I think if that was the question, maybe I answered a different one.
No, answer correct. Well, it's
Okay.
happy to have you, and just the best wish for you tomorrow opening, and we'll love to having you back again. So thank you everyone to join today No Sleep podcast, and see you again. Bye.
Thank you so much.
See everyone. Thanks, Alimo.
Bye.